Clerk, we are reporting out of closed session. We have 2 items. First item, 4.1.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. First item of council reporting out of closed session. The motion is to receive the report and that confidential direction to staff be confirmed.
Someone like to move that? Councillor Gilliland, second by Councillor Gardner. Record a vote.
Court vote has been requested for the first item of council reporting out of closed session. Councillor Kim, how do you vote? Councillor Kim votes yes. Councillor Gilliland? Councillor Gilliland votes yes. Councillor Gallo? Councillor Gallo votes yes. Councillor Weiss? Councillor Weiss votes yes. Councillor Gardner?
Yes.
Councillor Thompson? Councillor Thompson votes yes. Mayor Maracus?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. Second item, 4.2.
Excuse me. Second item report of council reporting out of closed session is to receive the report and that confidential direction to staff be confirmed.
Someone like to move that? Councillor Gallo, second. Councillor Weiss. Record a vote.
Recorded vote has been requested for the second item of council reporting out of closed session. Councillor Thompson, how do you vote? Councillor Thompson votes yes. Councillor Gallo? Councillor Gallo votes yes. Mayor Maracus?
Yes.
Councillor Kim? Councillor Kim votes yes. Councillor Gardner?
Yes.
Councillor Gilliland? Councillor Gilliland votes yes. And Councillor Weiss? Councillor Weiss votes yes. Motion carries.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. Confirming bylaw. Would someone like to move that? Councillor Thompson, Councillor Kim, all those in favor? Opposed? That carries. Motion to adjourn. Councillor Kim, Councillor Weiss, all those in favor? Opposed? That carries. Councillor Gardner, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much. I haven't shared in about 3 years. Yep. I honestly, I was never very good at it anyway. So yes. So first of all, welcome to everybody who's in the council chamber and the land acknowledgement. The town of Aurora acknowledges that the Anishinaabe lands on which we live and work are the traditional and treaty territory of the Chippewas of Georgina Island, as well as many other nations whose presence here continues to this day. As the closest First Nation community to Aurora, we recognize the special relationship the Chippewas have with lands and waters of this territory. They are the water protectors and environmental stewards of these lands, and as a municipality, we join with them in these responsibilities. We further acknowledge that Aurora is part of the treaty lands of the Mississaugas and the Chippewas, recognized through Treaty 13, as well as the Williams Treaties of 1923. A shared understanding of the rich cultural heritage that has existed for centuries and how our collective past brought us to where we are today will help us walk together in a better future. May it be so. Could I have someone to approve the agenda, please? Thank you, Councillor Gilliland, Councillor Thompson. All those in favor? Are there any declarations? Pardon me? That carried? Thank you. Are there any declarations of pecuniary interest? And if there are, what are they? Seeing none, we have community presentations. We do not. So we do have a delegation from Yafang resident regarding issues related to the Aurora Public Library's practice and conduct. You have 5 minutes if you would like to come to the podium.
Madam Chair, first of all, I would like to acknowledge the attendance of my friends and supporters tonight. Karen So and Jonathan Chen are residents in Aurora. Marinella Martins is a former Aurora resident. We volunteered together at the community kitchen, a program jointly run by the library and the York Region Food Network. and Susan Wu, a staunch supporter of my art. On June 20th, I delegated at the General Committee meeting. Unfortunately, the issues related to the library's practice and conduct have not been solved, and I had to come back here again. As a matter of fact, this matter has been dragging for half of a year, and it has had detrimental effects on me physically, mentally, and professionally. This matter has also revealed a number of holes in our system. I hope that my activism could bring some positive change to institutions in our town. I prepared 42 slides that I won't go through one by one due to the time limit, but I will just summarize a few key points. Slide, please. Regarding the library and the library board, at the last meeting, Councillor Gilliland has articulated that the library could easily correct a few items. And Councillor Thompson questioned if there were missing steps when the board dealt with the issues. It was quite striking and troubling that when Councillor Weeds talked about how library made decisions and how the library board made the decision at the closed door meeting regarding the concerns I raised, there was no mention of a Charter of Right to Freedom of Speech, of Expression, Ontario Human Rights Code, library's own policy on intellectual freedom, and its stated values, which are intellectual freedom. We provide access to diverse expression of knowledge and creativity. Inclusiveness, we support accessible and equitable services. Instead, only what the library thinks. The library holds many odd concepts of the exhibitions that are contrary to laws, policies, and stated values, and its practice are so wrong. I provided rebuttals one by one on my slides that I won't have time to elaborate here. Those libraries' concepts inherently lead to censorship. The library has not only censored my exhibition, but also censored an exhibition on Women's March in Toronto in 2017. The artist's interview video of that exhibition on the library's website has a blackout banner. Slide, please. Is this the blurred sign that the library talked about? For my case, my exhibition was censored and then exhibited fully after a constitutional law expert said that the library was violating my constitutional rights to freedom of expression because I spoke out against the censorship. I was denied the artist's interview video and have suffered from the continued censorship, discrimination, and reprisal. All information related to my exhibition was completely erased by the library after my exhibition. There's a pattern of practice of the library that needs to be corrected and addressed. The library board was supposed to play the role of prudent oversight of the library's operations. However, the board meeting minutes showed that the board held a closed-door meeting with the library CEO and the 3 managers to make the decision on the issues related to the library's practice and conduct. How is it possible the library makes the decision fair? The board failed its obligation of prudent oversight of the library's operations.
I'm sorry, but your 5 minutes are up and I do have to stop you. Could I have a motion to approve the delegation? Sorry, may I have a motion to receive the comments of the delegation? Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Councillor Gilliland. Are there any questions or comments for the delegate? Councillor Gallo?
Thank you. I just wanted to, I'm not going to address any of the issues, and I was in the closed session that the library had, but I want to reassure yourself and the public that it was a very lengthy, detailed, considerate meeting, and that the decisions that were taken were unanimous, and the approach that the library board took, I stand firmly behind. I realize that's probably not what you want to hear, but I want you to know that we didn't disregard you. We took your issues very, very seriously. I took your issues very, very seriously, and I had many, many questions, and I believe we did the best we could do. There's always room for improvement. And we did reflect on what happened and are doing our best to improve where we can.
Thank you, Councillor Gallo. There are no more comments. I thank you for coming. I know it's very hard to delegate, especially on a concern that is so close to your heart. But as there are no more questions, I thank you for coming. I'll call a vote. All in favor of receiving the delegation? Thank you. All opposed? That carries. Next is the consent agenda. May I have a motion to approve consent items 7.1 to 7.3? Councillor Thompson.
Can I ask that the bag tag report be moved to the regular agenda tonight? I do have some couple of questions I'd like to direct to our staff.
You certainly can. Mr. Clerk has made note of that. We don't need to vote on that, do we? No. Okay. Okay, thank you. So may I have a motion to approve 7.1 and 7.3? Thank you, Councillor Weiss. Thank you, Councillor Gallo. All those in favor? And now we should move to discussion of 7.2. Thank you, Councillor Thompson.
Through you to Mr. Colangelo. When we had conversations with the bag tag program, we talked about the goals and the rationale behind the initiative about reduction of waste. And there was some conversation at that time that if the program was successful, we would then look at reducing the number of free bags from 3 to 2, and maybe even further down to further perhaps incentivize the reduction of waste, and or also look at the process and revenue and everything like that. And so do you believe that it's the intent of staff to come back with a report perhaps at budget time or subsequently about continuing the reduction waste initiatives and further reducing the bag tag program from 3 free bags to 2?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. Honestly, I haven't had any discussions with the Director of Operations regarding that topic, but it's a good topic to have a discussion with her, and we can let you know.
Perfect. And, if not, maybe it's something that the environmental committee can look at, because I think that was some of the discussion and intent behind the program initially when the conversation is that let's move to this, but if it continues to be successful, let's continue to look to expand and explore different ways to reduce our overall tonnage. That was it.
Thank you very much for bringing that forward. Do we have to do another? Could I have A mover and a seconder to approve 7.2. Thank you, Councillor Gilman. Okay, thank you, Councillor Weiss. All those in favor? Next, we have the advisory committee meeting minutes, 8.1 to 8.4. Is there anything that needs to be brought forward? No? Then Councillor Gillen, should I be waiting? New business. Thank you. Could I have a motion to approve 8.1 to 8.4? Who would like to move that? Councillor Weiss, seconded by Mr. Mayor. All those in favor? Thank you. That carries. Now to the regular agenda. First item up is 9.1. This has to do with the housing pledge. The Aurora's 2031 Municipal Housing Target Pledge. Mayor Maracas. Would you like to start?
I'll move it. Yeah.
You're moving.
No, but yeah, I'll speak to it too, but I'll move it.
Okay, then I need a seconder to discuss it. Councillor Thompson. Okay, would anyone like to speak to this?
Yeah, here we go. Thank you, Madam Chair. So before I begin, I want to thank our director, Marco Ramuno, and his staff for the extraordinary work they have done on this report to council. It is clear, concise, and provides the information council needs to decide how best to implement a workable housing strategy that fits within our community's vision. To be clear, the purpose of tonight's discussion is to review the staff report and consider the best options to move forward towards our housing target and get shovels in the ground to build much needed housing for our community. It isn't to debate or vote on the inclusion of strong mayor powers in the relative legislation. That decision has already been made by the province and is beyond the scope or power of authority of our municipal council. We are in the midst of a housing crisis, decades in the making. I know we live in the era of sound bites and clickbait, but the simple truth of it is there are no easy or quick fixes to address it. It did not happen overnight, and it certainly won't be solved overnight. It will take all levels of government to put politics aside and work together to ensure that our residents, current and future, have a place to call home. Recognizing that municipalities play a vital role in moving new housing forward, the province has asked us all to do our part to make housing a priority. They've tasked 50 municipalities within the GTHA with a target, a number of housing units that we as a community pledge to develop to meet urgent housing needs. Additionally, they've introduced the Building Faster Fund, a new funding opportunity for municipalities. Now, at the June meeting of council, members voted unanimously to direct our staff to work on our number, Aurora's housing pledge for our community. As you see in the comprehensive staff report on tonight's agenda put forward by Mr. Ramuno, staff have identified our number as 8,000 units. According to staff's estimate, Aurora can accommodate 8,000 new places for current and future residents to call home, while at the same time meeting the terms of our official plan. And the province clearly agrees with our staff's number, as the province has also set Aurora's target housing number at 8,000 units. So what does this pledge to build 8,000 housing units mean? Well, it's important to understand that this number pertains to permits issued. This means we need to consider all approved applications, those at the OLT under review, as well as applications under review by staff that will be in front of council soon, from pipeline to permit. It means shovels in the ground for those applications already approved. For instance, an application like Highland Gate, approved in 2016, can still contribute to the total 8,000 with 144 units because it has phases awaiting permits to be issued. And it's the permits issued that matter for our housing target. So currently, we have 7,519 units in the pipeline, or nearly 94% of our target. And given that fact, staff are confident that we can meet our housing target. And we can meet our target without excessive development of our town or development that is beyond what we've envisioned in our official plan. Now, the newly announced Provincial Building Faster Fund is also linked to meeting our target. For the town of Aurora, this means that we are eligible to receive over $2 million each year for 3 years if we meet 80% of our yearly target. Now, residents and business owners expect us as elected representatives to use whatever tools are available to us to find solutions to the housing crisis that work for our community. And that is what we have done with our updated official plan and the housing target identified by our town staff. However, our challenge will be similar to that facing communities across the province, to go from approval to shovels in the ground. And that is why we are taking action, implementing forward-thinking housing-focused policy initiatives specifically targeted to incentivize housing development. Initiatives such as our Affordable Housing Action Plan, eliminating minimum parking requirements in the MTSA, and we will be looking at the end of the month at as-of-right rezoning on main corridors to help get shovels in the ground, but continue to adhere to the principles of our OP. Now, Aurora is in a strong position. We have worked to develop our official plan, a development plan that works for our community, set a housing target that is achievable and in alignment with provincial targets, and have, through our housing pledge, gained access to potentially $2 million of provincial funding a year for 3 years, in a total of over $6 million. At the end of the day, that is what it's all about, doing our best for our residents and business owners. It's about leveraging the tools made available to us to build our community in a positive way, with a diverse housing stock, a strong revitalized downtown, and a growing economy, one that will allow our residents, young and older, to continue to enjoy our great community, our town, Aurora, for generations to come. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Are there any other comments from members of council? Thank you, Councillor Gilliland.
Thank you very much. Well, that was a lot said. I'm really glad that we're doing this. It's really long overdue. I know in June when this did come to council, I think we're all pretty unanimous in supporting a pledge. It's no secret that our national debt has doubled and the excessive printing of money has just caused extremely high inflation and interest rates. Housing costs have doubled, rent has doubled, and yet construction in Canada is down 8.2%. And what's even more startling is I heard that there's students in Ontario right now that are opting to rent a parking spot to live in a van just to go to post-secondary school. Now, I know this is not Aurora, but it's not like we're really far off from this reality. There are people who are living in tents and behind stores in Aurora and in the forest, as we know. We just don't see it. It's hidden. And the reality is that we need more housing. People work hard, they go to school, they work, they learn, and they should be able to prosper from their hard work. And right now, we don't have these options. And we need to do our due diligence to help make that happen. We can't be standing in the way of this. What's also sad is that 9 out of 10 young people believe they're never going to own a home. Instead, they're going to be in their parents' basement. Trust me, I know. I've got one in mind as well. And I'm sure many of you around this council table know somebody, whether it's in your own family or somebody else, that's struggling through the exact same thing, or they're facing a mortgage renewal. That's not pretty. I do believe that the solution is that we need to build more affordable homes and some purposeful rentals. From what I understand, back in the 80s, when we were through this crisis in the early 80s, what do? We built more homes in the late 80s to get out of this. But what's even more surprising is that in order to get out of that, we built 220,000 homes 50 years ago. But yet last year, we built the same amount. And I'm trying to wrap my head around that with that population that we have. Like, why are you being so stagnant on this? We need to push forward. Everybody knows that I've been supportive in density, especially around the MTSA. And as so long as that we have a plan forward, we can put some density where it makes sense. We need to commit to this. And that's the solution, is that we need to commit to this housing pledge to ensure that there's some places for people to live, work, and prosper. And today we're sending that message. So I am supporting this. We have fewer houses today per capita than any other G7 country. It shouldn't be that way. Let's get some of the shovels in the ground and get people in homes. People's kids deserve to be able to buy a house in their own hometown, and we need to provide that option. So I'm in support of this. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Gillen. Councillor Weiss.
Thanks, Madam Chair. Let me also thank Mr. Ramuno and the staff for the supplementary information that you've provided here tonight. It's been well done, well put together. While I believe the numbers are a bit optimistic, as the mayor suggested a little bit, earlier, they're nonetheless achievable in my mind, provided that external circumstances over which we have no control, such as the construction of adequate water and wastewater infrastructure, market conditions that matter to developers who invest in this construction. These aren't trivial, and I'm not convinced we can meet these targets, but support the concept of building housing, as Councillor Gilliland has just said, and the need for doing that, and that it meets the intent of the official plan. Our residents deserve that. I'm, however, mindful of the responsibility my council colleagues and I have to acquire the bonus revenue that was suggested by the mayor just early through the building fund, and we need to meet these targets. It would be irresponsible for us not to do that. My only concern that was brought up by the mayor earlier is that the strong mayor's powers are attached to this pledge. And when you go to what the strong mayor's powers are, they'll result in the ability to choose and appoint an chief administrative officer, hire certain department heads, establishing and reorganizing departments, proposing the municipal budget, which would be subject to council amendments and a separate head of council veto and override process. Vetoing certain bylaws and interfere with a provincial priority are also included. So in Ward 1, 1,445 people of those 24 people who voted trusted me to represent them on council. And for me to vote to abandon those interests would be undemocratic in my mind and may have long-term consequences. So for that reason, I really hope something can be done to separate these two issues so that we can get these houses built and that we will not interfere with the democracy that already appears here with our electoral processes right now. The mayor's campaign last election included him not supporting the strong mayor's powers, and I trust he'll continue this direction. But I think we should all seek a compromise that gets homes built for our vibrant and growing community while protecting this democratic process. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Weiss. Councillor Gallo.
Thank you. I'm going to go through some of the things that don't line up for me, and even some of the things I've heard this evening. One of the big ones is that this new projection lines up with our official plan, or at least our draft official plan. I'm suggesting that it doesn't, and I'll explain why it doesn't. There are key areas of growth that have been identified in the draft OP, and I strongly disagree with the line that the housing pledge target number of 8,000 units per 1,000 units a year. According to the draft official plan, February 2023, section 4.2, accommodating growth projections over the next 30 years, by 2051, the town of Aurora is expected to grow by 20,900 people to 84,700. It should be noted the Aurora population projections were downloaded by York Region through their municipal comprehensive review process, which comprised of an in-depth calculation on population growth for the next 30 years for each municipality. The process, which has taken 3 years of planning and analysis, and which is derived by using provincial policies which have been set minimum populations and employment targets in New York region to the year 2051. Furthermore, SGL consulting firm that was hired by the town updated the Aurora's OP through their growth management discussion paper, explore how, where, and in what form growth should occur within the town over the next 30 years, substantiated York Region's 30-year population projections. Using a persons per household PPH of 2.9 derived from the 2021 census and the town of Aurora, a population growth of 20,900 represents a density to 2051 of 7,205 units. If we use a PPH of 2.5, Aurora is projected to add 8,360 units in the next 30 years. Aurora's official plan is not in line with the housing pledge target of 8,000 units over the next 8 years. It's actually in line in the next. It's not in line with our current draft official plan. In terms of the funding calculation that's been put around, I missed the number that Mr. Mayor had put forward, 2 million. So if and that's accurate, if we reach our target of 100%, we would be getting $2.133 million. If we reach 90%, we're getting $1.9 million. If we reach 80%, we'll get $1.7 million, which is our portion of the total is 0.533%. If we compare to our current regime of development charges, and albeit we'll have that discussion at some point to better understand the impact not only of this but of Bill 23 and how it relates to homes being built in the town of Aurora. We did receive a pipeline to permit summary, which I would have hoped would have been part of the actual original report from staff. Notwithstanding that, it was helpful to get a sense of what's in the pipeline. I won't go through it. I don't know if we can at some point convert this through Madam Chair to Mr. Ramuno as a public document. I think it's important for the public to look at where these numbers came from, or where at least we've projected the 8,000 to come from. Some of them probably shouldn't be public, but most of them we've all seen before. So through you, Madam Chair, could I ask Mr. Ramuno whether or not we could have a copy of this made public?
Mr. Ramuno?
To you, Madam Chair, certainly we can convert this into a document that could be distributed and made public over the next couple of days.
Thank you.
Notwithstanding everything that I said, that I do not believe it follows our draft official plan, and it probably shouldn't, because this is something extraordinary, and if it moves forward, we should probably, because we haven't completed it, adjust our official plan if this is the approach that we are taking. I'm not of the opinion that we should be leaving money on the table if we're able to reach some of those targets. I'm not convinced that we can. However, I wouldn't be in favor of not trying, because we may. And appropriate developments that make sense to us should move forward, and should move forward quickly if we can. And I'm not against that. I think what I'm trying to do is be very clear that it doesn't fit our official plan. There is incentives to move forward, but with all due respect, I can't separate those two: the leaving money on the table as well as allowing strong mayor's powers. I can't separate the two, and I'm not convinced that that's a done deal. I would like to, and I'll wait if others want to speak, but I would like to propose an amendment that may address some of our concerns and still move forward with the general concept that's being put forward. I'll put it on the floor now and let's see where it goes. So
You do have time left. Thank
I'd
you.
like to put an amendment to the second clause that states that the town of Aurora request and that the support for the housing pledge be contingent upon any strong mayor powers provided to the town be limited to those concerning the provincial housing targets and constructing related relationship infrastructure, while all other powers be delegated to council.
Thank
And
you. I
the clerk
believe,
does have it if we want to put it up.
so it's on our screen right now. That the town of Aurora, for the public, that the town of Aurora request and the support for the housing pledge be contingent upon any strong mayor powers provided to the town to be limited to only those concerning the provincial housing target and construction related infrastructure, while all other powers be delegated to council.
So if I could just quickly go through it, I'm in support of the pledge because I feel it's needed, and I feel it. I've described why it's not congruent with the draft official plan. I don't want to leave money on the table, but I'm trying to find a balance and a compromise to allowing certain strong mayor's powers that are restricted only to the provincial housing targets. I don't
Council-
believe.
I'm going to
Sorry.
just stop you for a moment because we need a second
Sure.
for that. Councillor Weiss, thank you. Please continue. Speaking to the amendment. Yeah.
So trying to find a balance between the two and a compromise where I can support the pledge. We can do our best to try to reach that pledge. We can, if we reach at least up to 80%, anything under 80%, we don't get any financial incentives. Anything over 80%, we do. And I don't want to leave that on the floor. At the same time, much like Councillor Weiss, I was elected here for a reason. And we all were. And I'm not about to give up the right to make decisions as a compromise to this pledge. And I believe this is a compromise where I can support. I hope all of you can as well. And I'm open to any suggestions if there are any.
Thank you, Councillor Gallo. Would anybody else like to speak to the amendment? Councillor Thompson.
Thank you. Perhaps Councillor Gallo, since it is his motion, could give a little bit more details. From what I understand, he's proposing a limitation where he says he's comfortable giving up his right to make some decisions, but he's not comfortable giving up his right to make other decisions. And so perhaps he can expand upon why he's opposed to strong mayor powers in some areas, but supportive of strong mayor powers in other areas. Seems a bit of a contradiction.
Sure, that's where the word compromise comes in. I realize that there may be times where, under the guise of provincial housing targets, that the mayor might need to move things forward, and I'm okay with giving those. The alternative, and that's the compromise that I'm having. Whereas the other items in that long laundry list, to me, don't relate to provincial housing targets. Being able to hire or fire a CAO doesn't relate to provincial housing targets. Being able to veto doesn't do that in terms of a budget. Striking committees and all of that, they don't relate to the provincial housing target. Some do, and I'm okay if he has that. The ones that don't relate to the provincial housing market or anything to move forward that, to me, there's no rationale to give those that authority to one person on council.
Councillor Thompson, you have the floor.
Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Gallo. I appreciate you expanding upon your answer. I know the word was thrown out earlier about being undemocratic or concerning how it impinges upon democracy. But at the end of the day, the Conservative government who was in power in the province put forward legislation that they felt was both fair and equitable in terms of what they're trying to achieve, and went through a proper democratic process. It was voted upon, it was put into force, and now we're asked to play within the rules that have now been set. And so we all talk about accountability and accountability for our decisions. And those of us who have been on council for many years, we've had to explain why we voted for something, why we voted against something. And ultimately we stand by our records and we are accountable for those decisions. It's no different. I would assume that if the mayor were to exercise these strong mayor powers in whatever that situation were to occur, then he would also be called upon to explain his decision, and it would fall upon him to respond to the residents and explain why he felt the need to do so. And so if you're opposed to the legislation as a whole, by all means, if you feel that it is wrong, not just for Aurora, but for everybody, then put forward a motion to strike the legislation down itself. But to just say, just do it for us, it feels a little more political than anything else.
Thank you, Councillor Thompson. Nobody else would like to speak to the amendment? So then, Councillor Gilland.
Thank you very much. Councillor Gallo, thank you for your amendment. I understand in the spirit of democracy that, you know, as council, especially a small council like this, that, you know, strong mayor powers could, you know, affect some of the outcomes of, you know, why we were elected as individuals to represent the community on things such as boards, committees, or firing staff. And I totally support this housing pledge and the intent of moving things along and allowing the mayor to have those powers to put forward supporting evidence to address the housing targets in support of the pledge. And, you know, for me, through Madam Chair to Mayor Maracas, I believe you campaigned on not wanting the strong mayor powers and believing that it wasn't something that you required. And I believe you also released a statement as such. And I think what this council is really looking for as well is that you would reinforce that, you know, the powers that you would intend on using in light of democracy were intended for the purposes of this housing pledge. I believe there's a lot more powers that are being offered within this that don't really apply to that. And you know, some constituents have that concern because we are a rather small council. It's kind of like a minority coalition, and it doesn't necessarily strike a good pose with some people as much as we're trying to move forward business of the town to get shovels in the ground. And I'm totally in support of that. But through Madam Chair to Mr. Maracas, I'd like to hear your words on that.
Councillor Mayor Maracas.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Madam Chair. As I said at the election, as I said in my statement, not needed, but the province has put forward this legislation. They put it forward, as I mentioned, to 50 municipalities, including essentially almost all of the York region, with the exception of King. So all of us are going through this. All of these are tools that are being provided to us. But at the end of the day, as I've said in my statement, we're going to continue working together to try to get things done for our community, for the betterment of our community. And if we all follow that logic and do what's best for our community and in the best interest of our community, well, then we move forward in a positive manner.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Councillor Gilland, you still have the floor. Oh,
Yep. Thank you. Okay, thank you very much. Appreciate that answer, but I didn't hear you say that you wouldn't use the powers if they were given, but I just wanted to throw that out there. I guess what my next question through you, Madam Chair, to I don't know if it's Mr. Nadarozny, the clerk, or Mr. Ramuna, whoever wants to answer. If we were supporting kind of this blanket kind of statement of, you know, if that person so choose, meaning the mayor or whoever the mayor is, to only limit those powers, does that mean we're not supporting the pledge? Is there a way that as council we would be supporting the pledge, but would prefer that the mayor took that position?
Mr. Nadarozny.
To you, Madam Chair, I presume your question is in relation to the amendment itself. So this seems to imply a conditional approval of the housing pledge. So I guess if this amendment were passed and ultimately the motion as amended was passed by council, then the housing pledge itself would only be approved by council contingent on the province doing something with the mayor powers. So I'm not sure how that would go, because as far as I know, the two aren't tied together. The province has moved ahead with or plans to move ahead with the mayor's powers. So I really don't know what they would do with a pledge that is conditional on something that they're not prepared to change. So and I also don't think that the pledge not being passed would have any impact on the strong mayor powers that are being suggested. But this is new for all of us. So, I mean, you know, I suppose it would have to play itself out.
Thank you. I realize why this was brought up, Councillor Gallo, because I think this was something that puts a bit of a surprise, because we did support this preemptively all on our own on council in June and didn't need to have extra bonus points put on top with the mayor's powers, because we felt collectively as a council already that we wanted to do a housing pledge in order to put some more shovels on the ground. So I think this was just a little bit of a surprise for not only council, but also the residents.
Thank you, Councillor Gilland. Councillor Kim.
Thank you, Madam Chair. When I read this agenda item, I considered this completely separate from strong mayor powers. This is just that council agreed to support the housing pledge. If we want to discuss strong mayor powers, that can be another time, another agenda item. But this is just quite simply us agreeing to a pledge, which is reasonable. It's already within our grasp, and through our staff and council due diligence over the years, we can meet them. It's, you know, we've always talked about financial well-being. We are in good financial stead, and we have an opportunity to collect more monies from the province, with us not having to do anything more than continue to go about our business the way we have been doing. I do understand, you know, the dotted lines towards the strong mayor legislation, but I don't think today's the time to talk about that. Right now it's about the pledge. But that said, you know, over the years, many of us, if not all of us, have said time and time again that we are creatures of the province. We play by provincial legislation, you know, whether it be development, whether it be by zoning or bylaw, parking. You know, we are creatures of the province, and the province have made that legislation, and we have to abide by them. But right now, in terms of the housing pledge, I'm all for it. I think it's something that's needed, and now that's publicly out there that this is our pledge, this is our goal, and it just provides proof that we've been doing all along and going above and beyond what every other municipality has been doing with regards to their growth targets. So for those reasons, I'm not going to support the amendment, but I will support the original staff motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Kim. Councillor Weiss?
Thank you. And I appreciate the comments that are being made around the table about the separation of this. And I'm not sure it's true. And my concern is, as the CAO said, that we're in uncharted territory here because this has never happened before. And there are strong measures that need to be done in order to provide good results on things. So I don't disagree with that, but I'm wondering from a solution standpoint, if we can hear from our legal department about the statute, the act itself, and whether it's possible to separate these two, because I am firmly behind the discussion around building homes and building appropriate kinds of homes. And I appreciate what the mayor and Councillor Thompson and Councillor Kim has said about the importance of working hard together on this, because it's going to take that. And I'm firmly committed on that. What I would like to do is to find out whether there is in fact an opportunity, or should there be an opportunity to separate the two with strong mayor powers being delegated to council on non-development issues that affect our ability to build houses and build homes for our residents who want to come to this community. So I ask that of you, perhaps Mr. Nadarozny, or perhaps the clerk, if it's possible that we can refer this between now and council, when it will be enacted, to our legal department and see whether it's even possible to separate these two.
Thank you, Councillor Weiss. There are no more comments. I'll call the vote. Is that correct, Mr. Cook? Pardon? Mr. Nadarozny?
So through Mr. Chair to Councillor Weiss's comment or request, we can certainly, do some more work on this if that's what council wants us to do. Right now, as far as I know, all we have is a letter from a minister that says if the head of council commits to a number, then the strong mayor powers will be granted to any community over 50,000 within the group that the minister has identified. So that in itself would seem to point out that they're separate. The letter itself also asked for communities to also pass a housing pledge. It seems separate, but it's a letter. It's not a statute. It's not, it's not a legislation that they sent us. It's a letter from a minister, which, you kind of accept at face value for the most part. So, but we can certainly dig in and see if there's anything more legal or more defined in terms of, I'm not sure there would be, because I believe my understanding of it, and it's not a legal opinion or anything, is that when the strong mayors first came about for Toronto and Montreal, Toronto and Ottawa, that's when all of the legislative work was done, and it's basically they're just extending those powers to municipalities, 50,000 above that follow that whose heads of council commit to a housing goal. But I don't know, unless our acting town solicitor tonight has any more insight to the legalities of it, but I would defer to him for that.
Okay, through you, Madam Chair. I guess, I would echo the comments that we made here. As far as legislation that's out there, we've all seen the strong mayor's power legislation. So that's the legislation that we know that's before us. As far as the housing pledge, it's not in the form of legislation or regulation that we can look at and say, well, if we do this, then this, this power can be invoked or something. So as Mr. Nadarozny was saying, there's only a letter that speaks to the fact that the a commitment can be sent to the province and that those powers can be extended. So I don't know how much more we can really get out of that, because like I said, there isn't really legislation that we can look at and say, well, this in terms of the housing pledge itself, there's a legislative background that we can look at and say, well, this is what needs to be done. So there's really a letter at this stage telling us that, what can be done. So I'm not sure if there's a lot more to be had, but as we said, we can try to provide some more opinion on this topic.
Thank you, Slav. Mayor Maracas.
You still had the floor.
Oh, I apologize, Councillor Weiss.
Thank you. I appreciate your comments, but it does show to us that this isn't really firm quite yet, but the pledge is indeed firm. I mean, I think everybody around this table believes that the pledge is important, believes that we want to work towards achieving the outcomes on the pledge. And so on that basis, I'm happy to vote in favor of the pledge. I just want to be aware of the circumstances that are attached to the pledge, and just wondering about what could be done about that, and whether it's the mayor is interested in doing accepting these strong mayor powers, and perhaps he believes that there are going to be circumstances that are going to be necessary to do it. I know in larger centers where you have 20 council members, where it's sometimes difficult to move things along quickly, but I think we've demonstrated over the last number of years, not me, because I haven't been on council for that length of time, but I think we are on target. We have been building, we have been responsible. The official plan, while it may not be perfect right now, it may in fact work for us so that we achieve the targets we need to do. So I have no problem with that whatsoever. But my logic to that is that if we're doing everything right now to achieve the targets that we need to achieve, then I just don't know whether we need to have strong mayor powers. And I, like others here who have said so, there's been a little bit of pushback from various people, and maybe it's not a representative sample. I'm just bringing it forward because those are concerns of residents that bring that to my attention. So I want to thank again the information and the others here, and I'll listen to other colleagues talk about what they think they should do about the pledge. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Weiss. Mayor Maracas.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just to give everyone a sense, I'm not a solicitor as well, but going through a lot of the legislation, when you read the news conference, or the news release from the province, it says Ontario is also expanding strong mayor powers to 21 more municipalities that are projected to have populations of 50,000 by 2031, and whose heads of council are committed to a provincially assigned housing target. The expansion of strong mayor powers will take effect on October 31st, 2023. The expansion is in addition to the 28 municipalities that already have strong mayor powers, having committed to targets through municipal housing pledges. Once a housing pledge is received from the head of council, these municipalities will also become eligible for and will have access to the Building Faster Fund. So reading this news release, my understanding from talking to the Premier, my understanding from talking, I think I'm not a solicitor. I have no problem. I think it's a great idea to wait until council to ensure that we get a proper legal opinion in regards to this. But my reading of this and my understanding of this is that if I do not send in a commitment, we are not eligible for the funds as well. They are tied together. But I have no problem waiting until council to get a more firmed up legal opinion, if that's what everyone feels more comfortable with. And as far as whether you use the powers or not, those are all hypothetical questions and what ifs, and I'm not going to deal in hypothetical questions at this time.
Councillor Gallo.
Thank you. And I mean, I'm always for getting more information and doing whatever's right. I'm not going to repeat what I said before. I will add that I'm not necessarily against strong Mary's powers when it's specific to the provincial housing target and building more homes. In fact, I'll give you an example where they could have been used, and we would be collecting tax dollars right now, the northeast corner of Industrial Park Square and Wellington. 5-6 years ago, 1, 2, 3 members of this council denied that application. There would have been 2 towers there built today, collecting property taxes, hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars would have been built. And that was a appropriate project. And maybe if Mayor Daw had strong Mary's powers, he could have vetoed that, and we would have had 2 towers there right now generating property taxes. Unfortunately, members of council denied that application, came back, and the developer fought it and got 2 towers of identical things, and we lost 12 subsidized housing as a result. So I'm not disagreeing with that concept when it's very specific to housing targets. I am definitely opposed to it, and I will not be voting for it if it has to do with hiring and firing staff, passing budgets. Those things have nothing to do with housing targets, and they probably should have never been in there or related to what we're doing here tonight. Those things, they do not. It's not necessary for that in order to reach those housing targets. Some of the things are, and I don't disagree with them. So I'm happy to wait until next week or whenever it comes to council for more information, and we'll go from there.
Can I allow it? You want to speak again? I'm not supposed to allow it, but I am. Okay.
I've only spoken once.
Oh,
Thank you, Madam Chair. And just once again, I'm going to go into the actual legislation, the Municipal Act, what it states. So the part that I guess that some are comfortable, some members around the table are comfortable with, it's not specific to it's specific to provincial priorities. So the strong mayor powers are given for provincial priorities. Right now, currently, it's housing. But what if that changes? What if the province decides, well, provincial priorities are something totally different, and you're actually against those priorities, but yet you've given those strong mayor powers. So really, what do you? I just don't see the need to separate. I mean, first of all, my understanding from the province is they're not going to separate anything. We can do this, but ultimately, if this was to pass, we're saying no to the pledge. And to me, it's important that we build housing. It's important that we build housing that is compatible for our community, as I've always fought for and advocated for. And to me, the focus tonight has somehow shifted into something that is not necessarily what we should be talking about. The focus to me is about the ability to achieve $2 million for our taxpayers over 3 years to a possible tune of $6 million, which would alleviate the burden on our taxpayers for building infrastructure in our community. To me, that's the focus that I want to deal with tonight. But as I said, if we want to wait till council to get a more fulsome legal opinion in regards to, is it possible to separate? Is it possible to do all these different types of scenarios? By all means, I think that that's a great thing for council to sit back, wait, and get that appropriate report or a fulsome report from our staff and make a decision at that time. So I guess maybe to Councillor Gallo, at this time, would you, instead of voting on this amendment, would you be willing to withdraw this amendment at this time and then possibly bring it back at council if so needed?
Mr. Clerk?
Through you, Madam Chair, I believe it's up to the council who removed it in this case. Both whether it stays on, it's voted on tonight, can be changed back, or can be moved again at council.
My understanding is that when an amendment is on the table and it goes through a complete discussion, as it certainly has, that council has to vote on it.
To you, Madam Chair. Historically, council has allowed members to withdraw their motions at any time. I don't see why this would be any different, at least in my opinion.
See, you could receive, you could just receive it.
Can I make a decision?
So a motion to defer would that would generally push it to next month. Now, council could still discuss at the end of the month in council meeting, but defer would at least push it into October, November. So a motion to receive would or after we deal with the amendment, a motion to receive would leave all options available to members of council at the council meeting at the end of the month.
So are we going back to the main motion? I'm not okay with withdrawing the amendment because I think it's against the procedural bylaw, but if you think that it's okay, then I'm going to go with your opinion. But
I
Councillor
didn't
Weiss?
hear what Councillor Gallo said,
You couldn't hear it
so
yet.
I'd like to hear what was said, whether this is a withdrawal of the motion and then a referral. Is that what is on the table? Because I seconded his amendment, and so I just want to hear what his decision was.
It's withdrawal of a motion, but not a deferral, right?
That's correct. If the amendments withdrawn, we're back to the main motion on the floor, and we could still get to receive by voting separately on the clauses, but it wouldn't be immediately back to receive.
Let's vote. Okay, all those in, Councillor Gallo and Councillor Weiss was the seconder. So we're going to vote. Okay, we're going to vote. Because he prefer we vote. And then okay, I'm just gonna, this is again, all new territory and interesting and difficult, but we've discussed this for I don't know how long. Councillor Gallo wants to call the vote and I agree. So, and Councillor Weiss agrees. So all those in favor of this motion. Pardon? This amendment to the motion. All those opposed. Councillor Gilliland? It basically is asking for more, looking for more information from legal, and Patricia's not here tonight, so I think it's in order. It can be changed to council, can't it? Yes,
We just voted.
I know we just voted.
I know.
but-
So we have a count. So can we get, whether it was carried or defeated?
But I didn't see Councillor Gilliland's.
She
vote.
says she abstained. That's what I just heard.
She abstained. That's a negative vote.
It's a negative vote.
Okay, it fails. Thank you. We'll go back to the Councilor, does Councilor Gallo have the floor? Councilor Gallo has the floor.
I have no more comments.
Are you done? Does anybody else want to speak? Councilor Thompson.
Thank you. Through you to Mr. Bruno. Mr. Bruno, we heard reference to the revenue that's available should we meet these housing targets. It wasn't provided in the report, but the mayor did quote a figure of $2 million. Perhaps you or Mrs. Wainwright Van Kessel can just weigh in and just either confirm or give us a rough idea what it is if that's not the right number.
You're not a counselor. You may have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. As far as the number goes, to do a bit of a deep dive into, I'd want to get back to you with the actual information. I'd like to look at it further before reporting a number to council.
I'm sorry, I had trouble hearing your answer.
I'll get back to you.
That's fine. If perhaps it could be ready for the council meeting at the end of the month, that would be great. As Councillor Gallo brought up, it would be great as well to see the memo you provided to us, Mr. Ramuno, as part of the council record or agenda at the end of the month as well. You know, assuming there's no confidentiality to some of the names associated, but I think it's as Councillor Gallo stated, you know, it's an important piece of information for the public to be aware of exactly when we say that we can meet that 8,000, how it's being derived. Finally, through you, Madam Chair, to Mr. Ramuno, Councillor Gallo does bring up a good point with regards to the official plan and aligning the pledge with the numbers projected in there. We did talk about the fact that 2051 population is supposed to be X. In previous iterations, our 2031 population was supposed to be Y. Off the top of my head, I can't remember the numbers, I think. But when you do the math with 8,000 units, yes, it would seem we would exceed those original population estimates. How do we align our official plan with this pledge if we move forward?
Mr. Ramuno.
Through you, Madam Chair, to Councillor Thompson. So, you know, Councillor Gallo is correct. I mean, we do have our got our current official plan that has population targets. Our draft official plan targets, they are minimums. They go to the year 2051 and identify 85,000 people. We also include with maybe 10-year intervals of where our projections of population is projected to be. This housing pledge and some of these numbers or the legislation is really about, you know, accelerating housing units. I don't really, you know, I'll certainly have a look and discuss with staff whether our draft official plan needs any adjustment. What would require adjustment would be the projections within those 10-year increments. I don't think we need to change our overall long-term target because again, they are minimum targets. The one thing I will add is with respect to when our consultants and staff prepared our growth management study and our land budget, it's obviously based on, you know, applications that they may be aware of, you know, when they started working on the official plan. The numbers I provided to council this evening are really based on actual planning majority of planning applications we do have under review in the works. So it's really a question of timing when those targets are going to be achieved. They're going to be sooner than we've identified in our draft plan or a little later. Based on these projections, they could happen sooner. But I don't believe our overall target needs to change because again, it is a minimum and it takes us to the year 2051.
Thank you, Mr. Ramuno. Following up on your comment that this is really an acceleration of that growth curve, you know, I think, and I'm supportive of the pledge, and I'm supportive of the initiative overall in terms of being able to address the concern that's everybody's spoken to. And I thought Councillor Gilliland did a great job talking about the fact about, you know, especially the younger generation and many families, you know, their kids can't afford a place and they are still living at home and trying to make their way in life. And, you know, we all know that this challenge affects all age groups. And so one of the concerns I would have is, all of us, over the years, if we talked about, it's important that, we have growth in our communities, but it needs to be balanced. It needs to be smart. It needs to be responsible. If we accelerate the development of the community and bring in more people, we want to make sure that we have the infrastructure, we have the amenities, we have the facilities to also meet that need so that there's not necessarily a negative impact to existing residents. So, in terms of next steps, if we support this pledge and move forward, how else can we make sure that as we bring forward these initiatives to get the shovels in the ground, to get these buildings built and people into these homes, that we also ensure that we have all of the infrastructure necessary to support this accelerated growth? Mr. Romano.
Mr. Muno.
Thank you. Through you, Madam Chair. So with respect to the required infrastructure, the one constraint we did identify in the report is, as everybody is aware, is our constraints with our current sanitary servicing capacity. Looking ahead, though, I believe in the short term, over the next 3 to 5 years, we have sufficient allocation to meet those targets over the next 3-4 years, that if you average it out 1,000 units per year. But again, we know that the region is finalizing their report on the required Leslie Street sewage system, and that should be, or at least the report should be completed early in 2024. So I think there is a solution over the coming years with respect to servicing. With respect to other servicing requirements or amenities, that is something that we review and look at very closely at the time that we review, each and every application. So we obviously take a close look at that. The one thing I'll also add is with respect to it is an acceleration. I think why we are seeing the number of applications over the past couple of years, the majority of them, as you can sense, within the ones we've listed in the spreadsheet, are really around our intensification areas, primarily the Young corridor and around our GO station. So, and again, a lot of that area was planned out, identified for intensification back in 2010. This current OP update has expanded that slightly, specifically around the GO station and our major transit station area. So again, the majority of those applications, I think we are seeing that acceleration to provide that sort of different housing form, being the mid-rise apartment buildings and also some of the townhouse and stacked townhouse forms of development, again, to meet the need that is there for that more affordable housing.
Thank you. With respect to mid-rises, through you to Mr. Ramuno, as we move forward, are we able to achieve this target without necessarily going upwards? Do we have the space to be able to build the 8,000 units as you've indicated, without necessarily going above and beyond what traditionally has been our ceiling in this community of 7 and 8 stories? From your initial projections, can we meet these targets while still maintaining some of the character and look that the community currently has?
Through you, Madam Chair, Councilor Thompson, no question. We've indicated that in the report that we're confident, staff is confident that even based on the applications we've identified, the majority of those are in line with our official plan height policies. So, again, I am confident that based on those numbers, and the majority of those are aligned with our OP and height maximum height frameworks within the OP, we don't need to go higher to achieve our long-term population forecasts.
Great. Thank you. And just last comment, I'm glad this council foresaw the need for the gym and passed that earlier in this term, because we're certainly going to need it as more and more people move into Aurora. Now on to the next gym.
Councillor Weiss. Oh, sorry, Councillor Kim.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Housing has been named an issue over decades, but it's only recently, the last 4 or 5 years, that it's become so acute. And how could it not be so acute when you have, an increase in immigration of 500,000 people per year. And it's been recently reported that there's almost 1 million foreign students in Canada, exacerbating the housing crisis. And it's only recently that all three levels of government are now aligned in terms of the need. We've been crying out as a municipality from decades because, we have the ear to the ground and we see it firsthand. Then you have the province, and now finally you have the federal government, even though the opposition has urged it for several years now. So my point is that, we're at a point in time where now all three levels of government are aligned. Whether it takes 6 months or 3 to 5 years, I sense that there is a real motivation to help alleviate this housing crisis. And so through you, Madam Chair, to Mr. Ramuno, and there's a really big disconnect between planning initiatives with respect to meeting this pledge. We certainly have the permits ready to meet the pledge, but how does that align with water capacity? Because for a couple of years now, I hear the numbers floating around between 2,000 and 2,500 units of water capacity being available. We have figures here of 8,000 that we can meet, but how do you align that with the water? And I know with the province, depending on which source you're listening to or reading, you're looking at 4 to 7 years before the trunk is increased or added, flowing down to Lake Ontario. So for our council meeting, is that sufficient time for you to prepare some kind of description of how housing plan and the water capacity can be aligned, so that current capacity and future capacity will be a dotted line, so that we can, as a council, can understand?
Through you, Madam.
I'm sorry. Thank you. Yes, Mr.
Madam
Mayor.
Chair. Certainly, to Council Kim, just to clarify, so our constraint is not with the water supply, but with the sanitary sewage servicing constraints. So, and I think I'm not sure if I mentioned it earlier, but it's been a couple of years since we reported on our sanitary servicing allocation to council, but just going through this exercise, we have the equivalent of just slightly over 6,000 persons equivalent. And that really translates into to allocate that council's currently allocated or has remaining allocation to these development applications. That's a good 3-year supply. I can certainly provide additional information in the for council, but as I mentioned as well, the region is working with the province on the servicing solution that should be in place, within 4 to 5 years. And my understanding as well is the region on a yearly basis, they do review their servicing models, and we may expect some additional allocation being assigned to us by the region sometime this fall. So within the medium term, I don't believe that servicing is going to be a constraint to achieve our targets within the next 3 years. Long term, we do need a solution, though, but the region is working on a solution.
Thank you. So through you, Madam Chair, if you can put some of that verbiage onto council reports, just so that it's documented somewhere in terms of the sewage capacity and the plan ahead beyond 3 years, that'd be appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to take my first turn because I need to follow up on what Mr. Muno just said. Mr. Muno, we had 2 years ago a report that we had enough wastewater servicing capacity for around 1,500 units. So I would like to know, and I would like it for council, please. I would like to know a justification of what you said and what was in the report of 2,000 units, because surely we've approved so much in the last 2 years. A question: when council approves something, when we're also basically approving the servicing capacity, when is that actually given to the developer and taken off the list?
To you, Madam Chair. So it's granted by council, at the development stage, either at the subdivision approval stage or the site plan approval stage. In some instances, if the matter goes to the Ontario Land Tribunal, that's part of the minutes of settlement, and allocation is then assigned to that specific development. We can certainly provide additional information later on to council, but I'll just, to clarify, with respect to capacity or allocation that council has granted to development applications, a lot of that allocation was granted to some of these applications within this the spreadsheet I've provided to council this evening, and those make up some of these units within the 8,000. So the applications have servicing capacity, but they haven't been built yet. So they're part of the 8,000 or 8,000 plus units that I've identified. And councils, there's still remaining servicing allocation that's available to assign to other applications.
Thank you. I'll be very interested to know how you work this out, because since we got that report that said we had 1,500 units, we've, I believe, Mavernack would have had their units already. The towers would have had their units. The Shining Hill. I don't think Vandorf would have had any units yet. Young and Irwin would have had their units. As soon as the shovel hits the ground, that's basically is a deduction from the list.
So to you, Madam Chair, it's even before the shovel hits the ground. It's when the development application has been approved. So that allocation is reserved. Just to clarify, we'll certainly provide the additional information to council. I'm referencing persons equivalent. So I think the previous report spoke to number of units. So we'll explain that in a future report, how that's converted. But we're assigned as certain persons equivalent to from the region. And then it's up to us to then convert that into the various unit types that we've approved. So we'll.
Thank you. I'd like to see, if you would, the justification of the 2,000 units for for the council meeting, because it's on the report. Also, I think we only got 330 units from the region. We didn't get very much. Thank you. Councillor Weiss.
Thank you. And I think we've exhausted all the good information around capacity and water and wastewater and all the rest of it. And I want to thank Mr. Ramuno for that and look forward to that report. My question is similar to what Councillor Thompson said about your experience with getting shovels in the ground, though. It's one thing for us to receive an application and to approve an application because it fits the official plan and that, but we've seen in the town a number of holes in the ground where there's not been any building permits or shovels in the ground. So I'm wondering if you know from your colleagues or looking at these kinds of issues. I know we've talked about sunset clauses on building permits, and I don't know whether those are legal, whether there are any precedents of them working or not. But if we're to move forward with this, we ought to have some plan on trying to get shovels in the ground and get the permits done. Do you have any advice to us or to our developer friends about moving to a building permit? Because we know that's market forces, that's inflation, construction costs, labor availability, and all the rest of it. Is there any advice you can give to us about that in terms of our discussions with developers? Through you to Mr. Ramuno.
Mr. Muno.
Certainly through you, Madam Chair. So we have, and we've taken council's direction in the past. I think this goes back about a year ago, where we are introducing or implementing sunset clauses attached to our new zoning bylaws, residential zoning bylaws. So it's really it's a sunset clause that states if building permits aren't pulled within a certain, a 3 or 4 year minimum, they've got to start again. That zoning bylaw gets repealed. So that's caught the attention of a number of developers, because we have implemented in a number of zoning bylaws. So they're aware of that. And from council's point of view, it is really a incentive to get these the development industry to move forward and to proceed to development. So it seems to be working, that they're accepting it, and they are committed to continue to deliver those units within that time frame, if not sooner.
In your experience, then, has that been tested? Have any of them run out, for instance, and then their application has been pulled, and have they had a legal challenge to that? Do you know if any of that's happened?
To you, Madam Chair.
Sorry.
So we've this is something new for us. We've started implementing it about a year ago, and so we haven't been challenged yet. And time will tell. Again, there's a number out there that if they don't, a number of applications that have a sunset clause, and we'll know in 2 or 3 years. If they don't proceed, then the zoning bylaw will be repealed, and they'll have to start again.
Thanks. And with respect to the amendment and moving forward, I want to thank Councillor Gallo for bringing that amendment forward, even though it didn't pass. I think it was well written and well thought out. I'll be voting to move this thing along to council, but I hope we can get all the information that we can get between now and then, so that we can make a full decision based upon all the information we have about legal, about the capacities, about other things that we brought up here today. So I thank everybody for a robust conversation and something that's honest and straightforward about it. So thanks very much.
Thank you, Councillor Weiss. Mayor Baracus.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And it's not what I was going to speak about, but I just wanted to respond to Councillor Weiss's comment in regards to the sunset clause. So in Fort Erie back in trying to just make sure I get the years correct, 2012, there was the Canadian Motor Speedway project in Fort Erie, was in the planning stages. They actually put a sunset clause onto it for an 8-year time frame. That 8 year was coming up, and they actually pulled the approvals, and so there was no appeal on that one, and it's held up. So that's kind of where my thought to initiate this and talk to our solicitor and putting this forward for the town of Aurora. I thought it was appropriate, and that we can uphold this essentially. And I thought it was a tool that, as was mentioned, I think by all of us, is how do we get shovels in the ground and ensure that those shovels get in the ground. And so I think that when you give the development community an incentive to say, listen, we're going to pull your approvals if you don't get those building permits issued, I think that's a great big incentive for them to move forward and get those shovels in the ground. What I did want to just mention is that when you do go through the report and you actually look at the pledge, and it talks about the priorities and the strategies for us to meet the target. New official plan identification, key areas for growth, new zoning bylaw, new community planning permit system for the Aurora Go MTSA, streamlining the development approval process, collaboration with key stakeholders, and it has different items in each of those categories that talks to what staff believe are strategies for us to be able to meet those targets. But I would ask all of us at this table to continue to look for ways that we can build upon those strategies that are in here and add more, so we can continue to either incentivize and push the development community that when they come with a proper proposal that meets our official plan, and we want to see those shovels get in the ground, that they do get those shovels in the ground. And so we should be continuously looking for policies that we can put forward to make sure that we achieve that target. And I think that's what we're discussing. That's what we're looking at, are those strategies and priorities. So I'm looking forward to, as we continue to build upon those strategies that have been presented, and meet our targets.
Councillor Gilland.
Thank you very much. Well, I am very glad that the province is actually bringing some incentives forward to get some more building done through Councillor Gartner to Mr. Ramuno. If I may, was there only one application that we have issued permits that has an actual sunset clause, or is there other applications that say are in pre-consult or in preliminary stages that we have sunset clauses that are in the contract, or I guess in on the go?
Mr. Ramuno.
So you, Madam Chair. So I think there's two different sunset clauses. We always include a condition that speaks to revoking servicing allocation within a certain time period. But last year, as per Councilor Mayor Marakis's motion, we started to include a new sunset clause right in the zoning bylaw that gets enacted by council that basically says you've got 3 years to pull a permit from the day of enactment of the bylaw. If not, the zoning bylaw gets repealed. And so we've imposed that in, it's probably been at least a handful of zoning bylaw amendments. And so in speaking to the applicants, they didn't challenge it, they've accepted it, and they're committed to moving forward as quickly as possible.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And I mean, I do hope that all three levels of government actually cooperate. I feel the federal government can hopefully also give us some incentives as well. Considering I know that, currently the immigration minister had accepted 5 international students for every one house. And so, to say that we're all in line, I really hope to see some improvement there. Not only that there's, $16 billion in new spending that, we're establishing more debt. So yeah, I'm glad the province is making this step, but we need the federal government to also step up, because this is a crisis that we need to address in all three levels, from federal, provincial, and municipal. So I'm looking forward to using any tools we can in order to forward affordable housing. And I know we did talk about height, and I know that we did talk about 7 stories. And while I think that's great, I am still open to, in major transit areas and so forth, to ensure that we're actually building purposeful rentals that are going to be affordable for people to actually live in, versus constraining people to homes that are, say, a stacked townhomes or 7 stories with luxury apartments that are still going to be $1.2 million. That's not affordable. So we have to be open about other options in order to provide those kinds of solutions as well. And I look forward to having those discussions in the future in order to allow this housing pledge and target to continue, but also to give some affordable housing for the people that live in this town and get people off our streets. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Gilland. Councillor Thompson.
Thank you. I'm going to add a 4th level of government to the region. Some councillors have raised the issue of allocation, and we've talked for many years about allocation and the need for a long-term solution. We know there's some short-term challenges, not just for us, but for all the municipalities in York region. And so, I'm not sure whether these conversations have already been had, and if not, perhaps Mr. Mayor, you can speak with the region or Mr. Ramuno and bring a little bit more information to council for when we discuss this again. But my question really is that, as indicated, with the exception of King, all of the municipalities in York region have been given a target. And if they all agree to this target, this is going to accelerate everybody's growth, and it's going to put further pressures on allocations. Does this help the region to some degree to be able to understand what the need is over the next 8 years to 2031 by each municipality signing on to this pledge and being clear in what they're trying to achieve, so that the region then knows what they need to do to be able to meet these pledges for all of York region and ensure that there's enough allocation for everybody? I know that there's been long-standing conversations about Upper York sewage solution, and is a topic of constant conversation about what the options and alternatives are. But I think that now, if all of the municipalities clearly establish their target, it gives a goal line. for the region to be able to say, okay, we need to ensure that whatever we're doing initiative wise is going to provide enough allocation for all of these municipalities to meet their housing targets. So it's a long-winded question, but if Mr. Romano or Mayor Maracas wish to weigh in it, that's fine, or it can be at council.
I believe that the mayor would like to answer your question.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And Mr. Muno, feel free to add on to whatever I say. So Councillor, at this point in time, you are correct as far as the numbers are identified essentially, and the region is looking at now all those numbers. They do have a report coming in regards to allocation in November. At this time, I can't say what exactly they have come up with a number. I would say by council, I should be able to provide a little bit more of a fulsome answer for you in regards to exactly what will be provided for each of the municipalities. I've been asking the commissioner to give me that number and for essentially assurances that we'll hopefully be able to, all of us in York Region, be able to meet our targets with the Southern solution that the province has approved now.
Councillor Gallo.
Thank you. Just in terms of affordable housing, through you, Madam Chair, to Mr. Ramuno, are any of the either approved by the town, approved by the Ontario Land Tribunal, under review by the Ontario Land Tribunal, under review by town staff, or pre-consultation, any one of those 8,498 units that are in this list slated for affordable housing and have indicated and applied to have development charges reduced as a result?
Through you, Madam Chair. No, I'm not aware of any of those applications being considered or applying for the province's sort of new affordable housing thresholds. And again, we haven't seen those regs or that detailed information from the province yet with respect to what the affordable housing threshold would be in our municipality in order to take advantage of any development charge credits.
Thank you. I mean, the developers are pretty astute. I'm sure they've done their math, and if that's any indication, we really need to work on how we move forward building, but in a responsible way. And part of those is to have affordable housing, and a lot of work needs to be put in that area because I'm not convinced the developers. Because they're in business for their bottom line, and ultimately it has to make financial sense for them as well. Through you, Madam Chair, to I'm going to say Slav because I'm really not going to be able to pronounce your last name. I'm sorry. If this does not approve, in your opinion, a few things will happen. Obviously, we can't tell the province that we have a target, which I believe would lead to not having strong merit powers. But I wanted to get at least an initial confirmation from you, if that's the case.
Just so I understand, you're asking whether if this pledge is not approved, whether the town would be designated as having strong mayor powers?
Yes, the Minister Clark's letter to the mayor dated June 16th says municipalities are a crucial part to help us get more homes built faster. Our intention is requesting a housing pledge that it will be approved by municipal councillors and help codify council's commitment to their target. So clearly he's saying municipal councillors need to approve a target and submit it to him. If we don't, the natural result of that would be that the mayor would not be able to submit a pledge to the province, and therefore no strong mayor's powers.
Now, If I may, are you referring to the letter from June? Is that what?
June 16th, specifically about the pledge.
Right, okay, yes, because if, I mean, there's a subsequent letter that was just issued in August, which speaks to the strong mayor powers being issued upon a commitment being provided by the head of council to the
And my,
government.
sorry.
So that's what's in the latest letter. It's so just reading that, it doesn't seem to be tied, but as I noted earlier, I think I would prefer to provide a further opinion on that for the next council meeting. So
And
we
through you,
can
Madam
review this
Chair,
further
is that
and-
what's going to happen? That you will be providing a further legal opinion? Is that what's going to be happening?
Well, if I may, then I'd like to review this further and I can discuss this with Patricia and we can provide a further opinion just to clarify that item. But just on reading of the letter, what I see here is that it states that if a commitment is provided by the head of council, then the town will be added to the municipalities that are designated as having those powers. Whereas the pledge seems to be separate from that. So
two things, and then I don't necessarily disagree with you. However, it would be, I think, somewhat odd if the head of council, the mayor, would give a pledge that the council didn't approve. I think that would be, I'll agree, it'd be slightly odd just to get strong mayor's powers. I'm not sure that would happen. If this council wouldn't approve this, I can't imagine the mayor going to the province and saying, "This is our pledge." What does he get out of it? The mayor's powers, strong mayor's powers. We don't have to abide by the pledge necessarily. But if
Thank you. I think that's one of the questions that should be asked and should be answered for the council meeting, along with the servicing.
Happy to have that.
Yeah,
And
thank
just to be clear, and I don't want to, it's extremely important to me, as it should be for everybody, exactly what we're doing. The only mention about the province's housing pledge or their priorities is in section give me a second. I lost it, but however, if the strong mayor's powers was to become in effect, let's be clear about what will happen. One of them is 284.5, the powers of a municipality under subsection 229 with respect to the chief administrative officer are assigned to the head of council. So the duties of the chief administrative council will be assigned to the head of council. That's what we'll be approving. Employment subject to subsection 3 and the regulations subsection 1 includes the power to hire, dismiss, or exercise any of the prescribed employment powers with respect to the head of council and any division head and any other part of the organizational structure. And then there's some limitations to that in terms of who can be hired or fired. And there's only really one section here that speaks to the provincial priorities. And I can't find it, but it's in. There's only one section that speaks to that. It's not the entire thing, and I've just described two of them that go well outside of that. So I think we need to really know if we support this, what the ramifications are.
Thank you. Slav, I see you're busy writing this, so it'll come back for council, right? Thank you. So I have some questions. To Mr. Amuno, the money that we would get if we achieve 80% or 90% of the target, which would just be under $2 million each year, is that going to cover the cost of servicing we need to build 1,000 units per year. in order to achieve this target. So is that going to cost cover the cost of servicing 1,000 new units and the residents that live in them?
To you, Madam Chair. So it depends on what you refer to as servicing. So if we're looking at sewage servicing, that is responsibility of the region. So that would be under their purview. But for other types of services that we provide, such as recreation, it is going to put a bit of a strain on there. And those funds would actually be going towards paying for new growth infrastructure. That would be the intent of using these funds.
So I'm not sure that I understand that completely. So of course, the services that apply that are provided by the region, I'm not talking about those. I'm talking about anything that's not covered by DCs, the infrastructure, just the whole package of what we would need to do to service our residents. Would that be covered by the 1.8 or the 1.9 million we get per year? 4,000 units.
To you, Madam Chair, so we'd actually need to do a comparison between how much we would be expecting to get, which would be around that $2 million a year, versus the amount of funds that we're actually losing in development charges based on previous legislative changes as well. So I think part of the intention of this new fund that's available is to help replenish some of those funds that we're losing. So it may help bridge some of that gap that we're having because of the lost DCs through the changes to the DC legislation.
Thank you. You know, I'd like to know if it's really worth it to build the units. Like, how much is it going to cost the taxpayer to ensure that we have the services? I don't know if you can figure it out. But it would be an interesting point whether this is just going to cost us too much money. You want to answer?
To you, Madam Chair. So as we go through our budget processes in the future, one of the things we do is our reserve analysis. And our reserve analysis gets tied back to the growth that we're seeing in the community, because that helps fund the reserves that we can use to buy growth infrastructure. And that's how we manage on an ongoing basis as to which significant capital investments we should make. Some of those are larger capital investments, such as large infrastructure, such as buildings, where we may debt finance them over time. But it's done carefully with a plan for what those reserves are expected to receive over that period of time. Part of that in the future would be this type of a fund where that would factor into that longer term reserve analysis that we would do in making those decisions as to which types of infrastructure we invest in.
Right. So we might have to make some choices that might impact our service level or our tax level. I wasn't going to ask that at all. So, I can't, I'm going to save most of my questions for council because we're very close to break. But I would like to know, and I was hoping that this report, the mayor's motion would result in a report from staff that would say how you came up with the 8,000 units. And I don't see anything like that on the report. So, the thought process, just all the intricacies that you must have had to go through to come up with 8,000 units. Could you provide that for the council meeting?
Through you, to you, Madam Chair, certainly. But again, it's really based on the spreadsheet I provided, the actual formal applications that we have currently received or are under review or have been approved over the past little while. That's how we arrived at the unit count. There were actual applications submitted to the town. Some of them have been considered by council or the land tribunal. Others are still under review by staff and have yet to be brought forward to council. We'll certainly elaborate on that when we update the spreadsheet. Provide that as a formal attachment to the future report.
Thank you. And maybe how you even think it's possible, because our biggest year, I think, on record was 2017 when we were booming, and we did 1,000 units that year. And it's 2018 was 460 and 2019 was 426 units. And of course, we're going to leave out the COVID data, but I really would like to see the justification of how you think we can do 1,000 units a year. Thank you. I think that's all I have for tonight. And as it is 1 minute to official break time, I think we'll call that now. Do we have to vote? Oh yeah, you know what? We have to vote on this. Okay. And of course, we can always try. All those in favor? And that opposed? Thank you. That does carry. Okay, it's break time. 10 minutes. Okay, we have more agenda items. Do I have to say, we reconvene or anything? Oh, yeah, okay. Okay, we have 9.2 up next. Heritage Advisory, no, I'm in the wrong place. I beg your pardon? Oh, so it is. Summit Park, thank you. Would anybody care to move and second this? Thank you, Counselor Gillen. Thank you, Counselor Weiss. Is there any discussion on this? Okay. Okay, Counselor Gillen.
Thank you very much. Through you, Councilor Gardner, to Mr. Colangelo. I want to thank you and the department for the work that you've done on this project. And I know that I had sent some emails to Ms. Tecamp because I understand that she is away and has allowed for some budgetary flex depending on the type of fitness equipment that you guys may elect to have. Do you have any resources right now that you're looking at or anything that you can share? Are we going to be presented in budget with some options?
Oh, Mr. Colangelo.
Through you, Madam Chair, not at the moment, Councillor Gillian. I can certainly provide that sometime later this week through Sarah.
Thank you. And through you, Councilor Gillian, to Mr. Colangelo, I understand that the majority of that cost is for the rubberized floor, and part of that reason is for accessibility issues and well, I guess not issues, but for inclusion purposes. I know that some of the people in the community really want to see some forward thinking with accessibility. Will that park also include some accessible components as well?
Madam Chair.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate that. Other than that, I'm really happy that we are doing a refresh in here. I know that there are kids in the neighborhood that really wanted to see a refresh with the basketball area as well and extended some time and play. And I was really happy with the results with the survey, with the surrounding area that was also in favor and support. The fact that we can offer some physical activity and fitness that is more affordable to everybody, meaning free, I guess you could say, out in the public while their kids are playing and they can do their own exercises. I think it is really a great way to encourage more physical activity, great for their mental health and their physical health. So thank you.
Councilor Weiss.
Yes, I just want to thank you also for the lighting. That was something that was significant when I was out campaigning on the other side of the street there. They all wanted to see the lighting, particularly in the basketball courts. So I assume that's all going to be done. That's part of the increase in the approval. So I think that's a great solution. And I agree what Councillor Gillen says about having adults and adult involvement in the parks, because it's becoming more evident that we have an older population that's interested in that kind of thing. And at the very least, they're taking care of their kids and doing something that's active and fun for themselves. So thanks very much for this. It's a good report.
Thank you, Councillor Weiss. Councillor Gallo.
Thank you. Regarding the funding model, we're taking the additional 300,000 from cash in lieu of parkland. And the report indicates that we have a healthy reserve. Through you to Ms. Wainwright Van Kessel. As a result, and I know we don't know the full impact of the new development charge regime, but my understanding is that one of the things that will be reduced is the contribution to cash in lieu of parkland by a significant amount going forward. The chart that's in the report indicates a healthy reserve of, I think it's hard to tell, somewhere over 20. Well, anyways, are we taking into account what may be some difficulties with the new development charge regime. Through you, Madam Chair.
Through you, Madam Chair. So as part of the changes that have recently come under legislation, one of those is the requirement to actually commit cash in lieu parkland funds. So, and use them for various infrastructure needs. And this is an eligible project that could use these types of funds. We do factor in what our future cash in lieu parkland revenue will be, and that's part of our reserve analysis that we do in our forecast. This is part of that 10-year plan. So the forecasted balances over the 10 years factors in what our conservative estimates are and what we will receive in cash in lieu parkland.
So maybe I should step back a little bit just to confirm, because I may be getting it wrong. We used to collect significant amount from DCs towards cash in lieu of parkland. Under the new bill and legislation, and someone please correct me if I'm wrong, that the amount that we're able to collect from developers is going to be significantly reduced. Let's clarify that first, and maybe I got that wrong.
Through you, Madam Chair. So yes, the amount that we can collect is being reduced, but we also have that requirement to commit the funds as well. And we've been building our reserve for quite some time. So this is a way to show that we are actually using those funds for infrastructure needs. The DCs, there is a reduction to how much we can collect for development charges now as well. There are some things that become ineligible. There's also a phasing in of the cost of increases to the DC. So when you see our new study come through next year, we'll have a 5-year phase in of any incremental DCs. So there is some loss to them there. But the cash in lieu parkland is collected a bit differently to the way the rest of the development charges are, because there's an opportunity to also collect, to receive land instead.
Yes, through you, and although probably most of the infill projects we're probably going to be asking for cash as opposed to land. Anything going forward now, not a lot of greenfield available. As long as we're taking into account this new, because as I understand it, it's pretty significant, almost up to half as much as we would have collected normally, which is significant and will impact these reserves as long as someone's keeping an eye on it. Okay.
Thank you. I'll call the vote. All those in favor? That carries. Thank you. Going on to the next item. 9.3, Center Street speed limit. Are there, can I have a mover and a seconder, please? Councillor Weiss, Councillor Gilland. Are there any questions? Councillor Gallo.
Through you, Madam Chair, Mr. Romano, would you mind just going through a quick review of the rationale for this?
Certainly, through you, Madam Chair. So the purpose of this report is to seek council's direction to amend our parking bylaw to reduce the speed limit along a portion of Center Street from the current 40 kilometers per hour to 30. And this is in response to a request from Metrolinx as part of their GO line expansion. As council's aware, they will be adding the second track to this portion of Aurora, specifically through Center Street. And as part of their federal regulatory designs in Transport Canada, they need to reprofile a stretch of Center Street 50 meters to the west of the second track, which will be to the west of the existing single track now. So they need to reprofile and it'll be a little steeper approach as you're coming east along Center Street. And so the sight lines will change slightly. And so they've determined that because the sight lines will change slightly, speed limit should be lowered. If there are any more technical questions, I can also ask Nancy Fleming, our manager, to come down. But that's the gist of the report and the request from Metrolinx. They will be doing work this spring on reprofiling that stretch of Center Street and adding the second track. And so the request was made to council to amend their parking bylaw to lower the speed limit from 40 to 30.
Thank you. So it was a request from Metrolinx.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Thompson.
Thank you. Through to Mr. Muno, just so I'm clear, when I look at the diagram, will the reduction in speed limit be for the entire section of Center Street from Walton all the way up to the railroad tracks, or just for the section provided in the arrows? The 90 meters.
Through you, Madam Chair, I think correct. It's that stretch identified in blue, that stretch 90 meters west of the tracks. That's where the new signage, speed limit sign will be posted.
Do you think it makes any sense just to do it for the entire section as opposed to 3/4 of the section? And just in terms of, I guess, public perception and just understanding the speed change. I don't know, maybe it's something just to take back to your team and have a conversation about it. I mean, there's only another small stretch, but maybe it makes more sense. I don't know. I'm happy to leave it to yourself and your team to sort of weigh in on it, but just seems strange to have it just for a small portion of the street and might create a bit of issue. That was it. Thank you. Otherwise, I support the idea of it.
Before I call the vote, I would like to thank Ms. Fleming for sitting through this very long meetings. And at least you had to have some input. Thank you. All those in favor? That carries. Thank you. The next is 9.4. And this is the reserve management policy, which was a very interesting read. Does anybody have any questions? Mover and seconder. This side of the table, Councillor Kim. Councillor Gallo. Thank you. Does then Councillor Gilland?
Thank you. Yes, it was an interesting read. Through Madam Chair to Ms. Wainwright Ben Cussel. There is a spot here on 306 when you talk about the reserves used fund capital projects and deficit reserve balance and where it should be avoided. There's a section there where we're talking about some of the road projects and stuff and some of the eliminations that we've kind of deferred, I guess, for lack of a better term. What infrastructure risks are we potentially facing with this reduction?
Through you, Madam Chair. So the risk associated with deferring capital projects, particularly these roads projects, is it's going to cost more to maintain the assets. So by deferring the actual asset management rehabilitation of a surface of a road, it would cost more to seal cracks, replace potholes, and maintain the road until the work can be done. So part of it is making sure that we have enough in reserves so that we can do the asset management work at the most optimal time, which has the lowest total cost for the asset overall. And a lot of that work will come forward next year when we get into the service levels for asset management plan in the asset management plan for the various types of assets. So a lot more of that information will be coming to you next year.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Just so we have an understanding, so at least we don't have any shortfalls. I know that with the last budget, there were some residents waiting with bated breath to have their road redone for various reasons. And I had a really great education on how they actually measure the millimeters of the road. So appreciate that. We'll keep an eye on it. The other question I had was on page 4 of 6, and we're talking about the annual reserve contributions and how it should be aligned with the asset management plan. And we talked about the tax funded assets and what the average annual tax rate would be. How much of an increase are we estimating on an annual basis beginning in July 2025? Is that the 2.9% suggestion in the report? And does that reflect a status quo? Would this be an important statistics we should share with the province looking ahead at our housing targets? And does this estimation take into account our 8,000 housing units targeted for 2031?
So through you, Madam Chair. So this estimate was based on the asset management work that we've done so far. And that included a financial estimated life of assets. So that wasn't based on the actual service levels. So we've defined what the service measures should be at this point in time. Next year, when we do the asset management work, we'll actually define the service levels. And our plan is to actually tie that to a specific tax increase that we require for those service levels. So council can make an informed decision as to what service levels will translate into what tax increase. As we grow and we expand, yes, we will have more facilities to maintain, more road network to maintain. And part of that is when these new units come on board, there will also be assessment growth that will come with them as well. So that will be an increase to the tax levy to pay for maintaining levels of service for those new residences.
Okay, thank you. And the example that you had given here of the 2.9, that's just moving forward from here, but the July 1, 2025, that's just kind of a blanket statement that we may be looking at a different rate at that point. Okay. Thank you.
Could you tell me if we have taken the effect that climate change is going to have on the roads with the freeze-thaw cycles?
To you, Madam Chair. So that'll be factored into the service levels and the estimates over time. So it will get factored into how we measure the assets and the status of the assets. And we will be looking, working with the climate change team to ensure that we factor that in. As part of the asset management engineering, their team is very involved in actually looking at the status of assets, whereas finance is more involved in ensuring that we have the funds available for them to do the work that they need to do.
Thank you. On attachment 1, I think it's page 3, it's page 4. It talks about creating new reserve funds and that the treasurer director of finance has the delegated authority to do that. Why wouldn't that come to council?
To you, Madam Chair. So council through their the delegation of authority bylaw has delegated that authority to me to be able to determine when new reserves are required. There is a reporting back. So if there's any new reserves that are created, it does get reported back to council. Most recently in the last couple of years, we've actually consolidated some reserves and removed some reserves. And that information's come to council as part of the budget process overall. We take a look at all our reserves, we look at the future needs and what the requirements are overall.
Thank you. And is there a limit on the amount the reserve fund can hold?
Through you, Madam Chair, or to you, Madam Chair, it depends on the reserve. So most reserves do not have particular limits on how much they can hold. The one reserve that we do have that has a target limit would be the tax stabilization reserve. So what we do is we try to maintain that to a target of roughly about 10% of the overall town's levy. And then funds in excess of that would get allocated to other reserves for asset management tax funded reserves.
Thank you. If there are no more questions, I'll call the vote. All those in favor? That's carried. And we just have 9.5. And are there any questions on this? You're moving it. I'm not going to figure this out before the end of the meeting because this is the last item. Councillor Thompson moves it. Who would like to second it? Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Are there any questions on this? Councillor Gallo.
Thank you. So we're approving the draft plan of condominium for 39 industrial units. This is just a comment that we've given through the province delegated authority for site plans. Yet things like this come to us, which to me, this is, all the conditions are met. We're actually just establishing a condominium corporation, a standard condominium corporation, and it comes to us. Whereas site plans, we have delegated authority, where really is the area where we probably provide some input. If we don't approve this, what happens? I mean, it's ridiculous, really, that this is even before us. This is the type of thing that I believe should have delegated authority. Whereas site plans, we should probably see and have some comments and go forward. But that's just my frustration with the process.
Thank you. Noted. So I have some questions. Mr. Ramuno, this is a business park in OPA 73. What, I know this has got a site-specific zoning to it. Where in the official plan category does this fit into? I mean, it says on page 3 that prestige industrial uses is, and I know prestige industrial uses is one of the permitted uses in Business Park 1. So I'm just wondering where this fits in.
Certainly to you, Madam Chair. So the official plan, secondary plan, designates this area as a business park, and it's actually zoned Business Park 1. And the uses, I think you'll find permitted uses within that Business Park 1 designation. And similarly to the zoning, permits a range of uses, industrial warehousing, research development, offices, manufacturing, etc. So it obviously conforms to the official plan and the zoning bylaw. It is a 39 unit condominium ownership type of building. So the average unit size is approximately 3,000 square feet. So we will see a range of different businesses in there. Could be offices, could be small manufacturing, warehousing, distribution type centers. So again, it is in keeping with the OP and zoning bylaw business park designation and permitted uses.
Thank you. And this is a one-story. These are one-story buildings? Yes. There's parcel 175 that borders the 404. Is that a building parcel or is that natural land? Sorry, I'm on attachment. No, the first attachment.
So 175 is a block within that in business park. So it'll be.
It's not a building parcel?
I believe that portion is. I don't think we've seen a building permit on that portion, on that lot.
Okay, I was just curious because it borders the 404, so
Yeah.
it would have probably different parameters than something in the interior of this business park.
Believe that'll have it's the same to you, Madam Chair. It's the same designation and same zoning. The one restriction, if you recall, was which was revised at, I believe, back in May or June with respect to a zoning amendment to permit warehousing adjacent to the 404. We haven't seen a site plan application for that lot yet, though.
This is the site that has the warehouse?
The Addison Hall. This is part of the overall Addison Hall business park area.
Okay, well, I'm just going to take the opportunity to say that a warehouse is a large warehouse like this is not permitted in OPA 73, and to have it against the 404, it's just to me very inappropriate. Thank you. If there are no other comments, I'll call the vote. All those in favor? Opposed? That carries. And I have my script and it doesn't. So, is there, we have a notice of motion for council from the mayor and regional report. I don't believe there's a regional report tonight. Is there any new business? Council Gilliland.
Thank you. I forgot to ask this question earlier through Councilor Gardner to Ms. Wainwright Van Kessel and in relation to the reserve management policy. Should the policy include any language that pertains to the One Jib investment fund that we partook in?
Through you, Madam Chair. So the policy that governs that is the investment policy. So that relates to the what's happening with the One Jib. So that is covered in that separate policy.
Okay, perfect. All right, thanks.
Thank you. No other new business. Okay, Councillor Weiss.
Thank you. My only request about new business has to do with the men's shelter. And on August the 10th, I believe, in response to Councillor Gartner's request about what is happening with that, with the planning of it coming back for the second planning session, then the mayor sent out a information describing that we haven't received anything from the region, and it was stated that we were waiting for them to do their business and there would be updating. And so I've had requests from various people in and out of the ward about whether that's coming back, when it's coming back. And in that email, it said that we would get some updates. So that's about a month ago. And I don't know if we've had any updates. If there are any updates that Mr. Ramuno can give us some advice, whether the region has or has not contacted us and whether we have a plan to move forward with this. I think everybody would like to hear it. That's all. So through you to Mr. Ramuno.
Mr. Ramuno.
Certainly through you, Madam Chair. So our recent discussions with regional housing staff, they are looking to schedule, they want to move forward with a second meeting. They are also, in advance of that, are planning to conduct their own public consultation. We haven't seen confirmation of when or where, but they are requesting that we plan for a second public planning meeting, either towards the end of this year or early in January. Obviously, we don't have a meeting in December. The meetings in November are already slated for other items, so we may be looking at a January second public planning meeting for that application.
Thank you. So just unpacking that, they're going to do their own public planning meeting without council involvement. And then we are going to have our official public planning meeting, the second one that's coming up. That's the plan. And it could be as late as January. Right.
To you, Madam Chair, that's our understanding. They are looking to schedule and undertake their own sort of public engagement. It won't necessarily be a public planning meeting. It's similar to, I believe, the public engagement that they had arranged, last year or 2 years ago. But we haven't received confirmation yet of date or timing. And of course, when we do, we'll notify council.
Thanks, everyone. We'll appreciate knowing the schedule. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Okay, are there any public service announcements? Starting with Councillor Kim. Councillor Gallo.
Just considering it's the first day of school for many students, just wanted to wish all the students and teachers and caretakers and secretaries and everyone that works in our education systems the best of luck for the upcoming school season.
Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Councillor Gallo, for that. Is your wife back at work? Is your wife back at work?
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely. I think we all echo those sentiments in regards to our students and wish them much success, as well as everyone that, as Councillor Gallo mentioned, the teachers, the support staff, the parents, all that they do to ensure that our students are successful. So thank you to all of them. Today was also the first day and the grand opening essentially of a new all-girls private school, St. Anne's. I know a couple of counselors joined me at the opening. It's great to see. I think we're all excited at the fact that St. Anne's presence in our community, I think represents our town commitment to education and the well-rounded opportunities for women and girls in our community. So it was a great opening. And if, as I said before, if you haven't seen this former house transformed into a school, hopefully everyone gets an opportunity to go check it out, because it is a phenomenal structure that is going to be here for quite a long time in the town of Aurora. So we're excited about that. And then I just wanted to end with September 9th. So this Saturday is Saturday Night Fever, starting 4 o'clock. We will be shutting down Yonge Street from Wellington to Moseley. Thank you, Councillor. To Moseley. So from 4 p.m. to 11, and it's a Motown theme. So we're bringing Motown to downtown. So it's quite exciting. And obviously the headliner is George St. Kitts, which I know everyone's very familiar with. And he's a phenomenal musician, and we're very excited. So hopefully the weather cooperates with us, and we can have another incredible night in our downtown.
Thank you. Councillor Gilland.
Thank you. Well, I just want to let everybody know that in Ward 2 at the Hillary House, that there is a Victorian Harvest Tea. That's September 16th. So I encourage you to check that out. And they also have a Scotch tasting as well, which is coming in October, which is a really neat event. All in the name of fundraising, right? How cool is that? And that's on October 3rd. At 7 p.m. So please check out the Hillary House and the Aurora Historical Society. They've got some great events there. And as always, I always like to do a shout out to the Aurora Cultural Center, to all the really amazing programs and shows that they have going on there, as well as the Royal Rose Art Gallery. There's always something to explore and discover. Let's support our local artist right here in our town, Aurora. Thanks.
You're me. I know. But we'll let Councillor Weiss go, and then I'll come back.
Thanks. A couple of things. Next week, I think next Tuesday, is a chamber golf tournament. I don't know if there's any places left for people to participate, but this is a big fundraiser for the Chamber of Commerce. And so if people are interested in that, it's going to be held at Westview Golf Club in the morning. And Saturday on the 9th is going to be a busy day. Not only are we going to have the Main Street happening, but Sport Aurora has their All Sport One Day event, which is a unique event that'll be held. I can't recall where it's going to be held. It's going to be held. There's still a couple of spots open. This is a fully funded event. It's all paid for through our participation grant. So any people who are looking to try a new sport, they're having their kids involved in something they've never been involved with before, they can certainly get a hold of Sport Aurora and sign themselves up, and then enjoy a day of trying something new. Thanks.
Thank you. Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just one more on Friday at 7 p.m. It's opening night for the Aurora Junior A Tigers. So if you want to see some great hockey, I suggest everyone get out there and support our Junior A team. I'm sure they're going to have a phenomenal year. I've seen some of the players out there this year. They actually played the other day against a team from Germany and won. And so we're very excited about their chances this year, and we're looking forward to a great year. Hopefully, maybe they'll come back with the cup. So
Thank you. Thank you. And if you're planning on going to the tea at Hillary House, you have to make a reservation. I made that mistake once. Also, I think thanks are in order to Shelley Ware's team for really a terrific terrific season of concerts in the park. And I look forward to September the 9th. And on those words, excuse me, I call the meeting closed. Oh, do I need a motion? Okay, motion. Is it seconded? Who seconded it? Okay, all those in favor? Oh, now I already gavelled.
The gavel goes.
I already did it. It
goes to
was
people's
fun.
heads.
It was fun. Okay,